So you want to make an impact. You're thinking about starting a business, sharing your voice. How do women do it that handle motherhood, family, and still chase after those dreams? Well, listen each week as we dive into the stories of women who know. This is Call Me CEO. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Call Me CEO. This is your host, Camille Walker. My voice may sound a little bit lower than normal because I have a little bit of a cold. So I apologize for that. But you are in for a treat today because we are actually going to take a deep dive into revenue building. For all of you business owners, we have the Boss Project co-owner, Emylee Williams, it's Emylee. You guys, it messed me up because her name is spelled Emylee. And I even said, okay, it's Emylee. And I have a sister-in-law with the name Emmy, middle name Lee. And I
think that's the weirdest connection.
It is so weird.
I knew your brain was going to trip you up.
I know, dang it. This is real, people. But her co-owner is not with us today, Abagail Pumphrey. And they are also the hosts of the Strategy Hour podcast. And we are so excited to hear about this. Emylee, please tell us more about the Boss Project and how it got started.
Yeah, so Boss Project has been around since 2015. We were kind of official in 2016. We're actually known as Think Creative Collective back then. So if you've heard of that, that's also us.
Okay.
We rebranded in 2018, I think. I don't know. All the years are blurring together. But yeah, I had my own business. I started a business fresh out of college. I graduated, didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an art degree in photography and a minor in creative writing and multicultural studies. So I did not know what I was going to do. I picked up my camera, kind of started a little bit of a business, not charging people enough, not understanding marketing, not understanding selling, and just kind of like doing it. I had an incredible partner at the time who was my now husband, who is still incredible. And so he just kind of let me just like be a little creative, and I didn't have any pressure. We didn't have a ton of bills at that time. We definitely didn't have a kid at that time. And so life was much different. But I finally had a serious chat with him where he was like, I believe that you can actually turn this into something if you actually try. And if you take yourself seriously and if you learn a little bit more about the business. And so I was like, okay, fine. And so I started taking a couple of online courses and listening to podcasts and just like digesting and being a sponge about learning about everything about online business and strategy and selling and all of the cool things, and really took from other industries what I think could work in my local photography business. And overnight, completely redid my entire selling process, the entire experience, the pricing, everything. I 64x'd my pricing overnight, basically. Wow. I mean, I was charging hardly nothing. So I went ahead and booked a client. I had put out some feelers, got a client who's like, I'm going to treat this client like the premium top-notch experience and just see, because I was starting to get burnt out. I was starting to not have a great client experience because I wasn't having fun. They weren't having fun. It was just feeling really off. And so I drastically increased my prices, but I also drastically increased the level of customer service and the experience and what people get and how I communicate with them and how I show up for them. And took this new client, which was a family photography client, through this entire process. And I walked out of their selling session with a $2,500 check when I was getting used to $75 Venmo transactions. And so I was like, oh, this was a completely different experience. They were crying. They loved it. I was so happy. I called my husband on the way home and I was like, I don't know what just happened, but this happened. And he was like, see, do more of that. So I started to become obsessed with selling and marketing and creating client experiences that converted, and really, really dove deep into obsessing about being a service-based business owner and having a service and impacting other people. Ultimately, that led me to create a course for photographers all about pricing, which led me to a Facebook group for small business owners, which led me to joining an Instagram pod. Do you remember when those things were a thing? When you're 5 or 7 Instagrammers, and then they would comment on your post right when you hit publish to boost it in the algorithm. So I joined an Instagram pod, and Abagail was in that Instagram pod, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I love how you talk to your audience. That's how I talk to my audience. I also am obsessed with selling and pricing and marketing and all of those things." So she actually grew up about 20, 30 minutes from me, but we had never met each other. We'd never, like, we didn't know each other existed until I lived 4 hours away and we met in a Facebook group.
Wow.
So 2 weeks after meeting in a Facebook group, I drove up to Missouri. I was living in Tulsa at the time. I stayed at her house. I like had known her for 2 weeks on the internet, stayed at her house over the weekend. We just connected on so many levels about what type of businesses we wanted to run, what we didn't want to do, what we didn't want to sacrifice, how we felt like there wasn't really a space for us and we wanted to create community and all of these things. And so then a couple of months, we were like, why don't we just like try to do this together and see what that feels like? So we hosted a webinar and co-sold my course together. She eventually added some curriculum to it. We started working with clients together, both in Kansas City and Tulsa, and ultimately decided to relaunch our brand as co-founders of a company and started pushing out blog content and courses and webinars and workshops and challenges and working one-on-one with clients, and then launched our podcast in 2017, and now just serve clients with our incredible team of 7. We have 7 people on this team, like
Awesome.
full-time employees, like with benefits and paid time off and like all of these things. And so it went from a definite hobby that I thought maybe I'll never make money from to a full-fledged actual company, which is wild to me.
That is so cool. I love that you just like, you were so like-minded in your mission and what it is that you wanted to do. And what's really interesting to me too, is that you found each other in such an organic way, which I feel like that can still happen. So if you're listening to this right now and thinking, could I find someone like that where I could partner? Because I feel like we all have our own talents and strengths, and finding someone that complements you in your weakness is like magic. So that's so cool.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a game changer for both of us. We talk about all the time how we're like, are each other's yin and yang, and like we just complement each other so well in the sense that our values are always in alignment. And I think that that's critical. Like we're always on the same page of how we want to show up and ultimately what we want to achieve together, but how we want it to look and feel like as we're going towards those goals. But what we're doing to get there, we're open to experimenting and trying new things. And maybe it's a service, maybe it's a course, maybe it's, writing a book. I don't know. Like, we're just like, let's just see what this looks like. But as long as we know that we're building it in the alignment that's best for both of us, then we're going to be great.
I love it. Now, there's something, when I got the pitch from your company to be on the show, one of the things that caught my attention was something that said, first, the number one mistake we make when trying to scale. So I want to really dig into that. And second, how we can make $60,000 more per week, I think is what it said.
In 6 weeks.
In 6 weeks without new leads. So let's tackle those 2 questions. Cause I'm like, that sounds good.
I want both of those things.
Right. So what's that number one mistake? Let's talk about that.
Well, so to us, and we've gotten the privilege of working with over 10,000 small business owners over the course of the years, whether it's through our paid programs or like our courses and our workshops or our coaching programs or our one-on-one executive coaching program. So we have gotten behind the scenes of a lot of business owners. And so because of that, we have a lot of data that we can look at, and we can pull on a lot of themes of where people get stuck, and the commonalities within businesses, no matter what stage you're in or what industry you're in, what your goals are in. And so ultimately, everyone's after scaling, right? Like a lot of us want to go through seasons of growth or scaling. And oftentimes we get growth and scaling confused. But what the conversation we need to actually be having before we're diving into that, and this is kind of what I alluded to on the sense of like Abby and I's values are very similar,